Finty. They say, you never truly know a person until you are no longer useful to them. I spent 6 years of my life playing the role of a silent foundation, holding up the walls of a house that belonged only to her. I traded my own ambitions for her textbooks and my peace of mind for her clinical rotations. When I stood in that garden on a summer evening, holding a manila envelope while the music played, I realized the most expensive lesson of my life wasn't the tuition I paid. It was the realization that I had married a stranger. Sup Reddit, let me take you back to the beginning. I was 29. For most of my 20s, my identity was essentially Lauren's husband. We met in college, a classic tale of a chemistry major bumping into a Prudental student at a crowded house party. The chemistry was instant, electric, fused, and honestly, it felt like the start of something beautiful. Lauren was brilliant, driven, and possessed this fierce, infectious energy that made you want to help her climb mountains. I loved that fire in her. I really did. We got married during our junior year, young, foolish, and deeply convinced that we were soulmates. For those first few years, life was simple and sweet. We had those long, late-night study sessions that always ended in breakfast runs at 3 a.m. We went on spontaneous road trips whenever our bank accounts could spare the gas money. But then came dental school. And the woman I married began to fade away, swallowed whole by mountains of textbooks and 18-hour study marathons. I didn't complain, though. I believed that was just part of the bargain. I shifted my career from education to supply chain analysis, chasing the bigger paycheck and the stability she needed. Someone had to cover the rent, the mounting tuition fees, the textbooks, and the relentless car payments. My 60-hour work weeks became the new normal, while my own dreams were packed into cardboard boxes and shoved into the back of a storage unit. 6 years passed in a blink of exhausting, monotonous labor. Theme that Saturday in June. It was supposed to be the highlight of our lives. The graduation party her parents threw at their exclusive country club. There was an open bar, expensive catering, and nearly 200 guests, including her entire cohort and their families. I was proud. Or at least, I thought I was. She pulled me aside, guiding me toward the garden area where the string lights hummed in the evening breeze. I need to talk to you, she said, her voice unusually calm. I expected a sentimental speech about how we had finally crossed the finish line together. Instead, she handed me a heavy manila envelope. I tore it open under the decorative lights, paper feeling unnaturally cold against my skin. Divorce papers. Everything was there, meticulously drafted. Assets already divided, a payment plan laid out for me to buy out my half of the joint account. That was chillingly professional. Are you serious right now? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. It's the perfect time, she replied, her eyes devoid of any warmth. It's a clean break, a new chapter. Starting my practice in 2 months, and I need zero distractions. You've been useful, I'll give you that, but I don't need a husband anymore. Useful. The word hung in the air like a death sentence. You knew the deal, she said, waving a hand as if flicking away a piece of lint. Dental school came first. Now I'm a dentist. I need to be alone to reach my potential. You can find someone on your level. Someone who doesn't have a real career to worry about. Her friends watched through the windows, their faces lit by the party glow, some smirking with a knowing look. My best friend, Nolan, stood at the bar, his face pale, horrified by the spectacle unfolding in the garden. You planned this, I said, the pieces clicking into place. Of course, she snapped, checking her phone for a notification. Sign the papers. It's a win-win. When the switch flipped inside me, the years of being the agreeable, supportive partner shattered into a million pieces. I'm not signing this, I stated firmly. Her face hardened, the mask of patience cracking completely. Excuse me. Not signing a thing. If you want a divorce, we're doing it the right way. With lawyers, with full financial discovery, and with a deep dive into every cent we've spent. He laughed. A sharp, condescending sound. You're being difficult for no reason. Just sign it and walk away. No, I replied. Fine, have it your way, she hissed, turning back to the party without a second glance. Stay. She showed up at our apartment, expecting me to be a broken man. She walked right past me, headed for the bedroom. I need my clothes and books, she said, not even looking at me. I sat at the table. My laptop open, revealing a spreadsheet that would change everything. You think you're staying here? I asked, a dark laugh escaping my lips. I just need a few days, she countered. Not happening, I said, standing up and closing the laptop. Pack your bags and get out. Now, she didn't know that my work in supply chain analysis had made me an expert at identifying inefficiencies and liabilities. Things it. I had spent the night reviewing every bank statement, every loan application, and every credit card bill from the last 6 years. I found the patterns of her excessive spending, the secret accounts she had been building, thank you, and the way she had intentionally mismanaged our joint assets. When the lawyers got involved, they didn't see a useful husband and a brilliant dentist. They saw a systematic pattern of financial abuse. The judge didn't just look at her degree, he looked at the cost of the life I had sacrificed to buy it. The clean break she wanted turned into a financial audit that lasted 6 months. In the end, the woman who claimed I wasn't on her level found herself starting her practice in debt, while I walked away with the peace of mind that comes when the truth is finally laid bare. She tried to call me a month later, her voice trembling, begging to discuss a settlement. I didn't even listen to the voicemail. I just hit delete. Justice isn't always loud, and it isn't always fast. But when it finally arrives, it hits exactly where it needs to. I am finally building a life that is mine, not an investment for someone else's future. And for the first time in 6 years, I can finally breathe. You think you're staying here? Absolutely hilarious. I only need a few days to figure things out. That is not happening. Pack your belongings and get out right now. She brushed past me, heading straight for the bedroom. But my eyes remained glued to the laptop screen. 6 years of financial records were pulled up in a neatly organized spreadsheet. Rent payments, tuition transfers, and every single dollar I had tracked because I was the only one paying attention to where our money actually went. 10 minutes later, she emerged, dragging 2 suitcases behind her. Look, I will be out of your way, and you won't even know I'm here. Actually, the lease is in my name and has been since we moved in here 2 years ago. She froze mid-step. What on earth are you talking about? Exactly what I said. Run. You never signed the lease, so I have been the sole tenant for 2 years while you were just staying here. That is completely ridiculous, as this is our apartment. Check the lease yourself. If you don't believe me, the landlord has my name only on file. My bank account is the only one tied to the property, and since you never contributed to rent, you were never added. Face contorted in anger. So what? You're just going to kick me out like that. How mature. You are the one who declared you were finished. You handed me divorce papers and told me you didn't need a husband. So yes, you are out. You cannot possibly be serious right now. I am dead serious. You left the moment you announced this marriage was over, and that is simply how it works. She let out a sharp, bitter laugh. Pathetic. Which is exactly why I am leaving. You can't even handle a simple conversation without being overly dramatic. I am the dramatic one. Our divorce at a party and spent the entire night texting someone else. But sure, I am the problem. Whatever. I will just come back whenever I want, and you can't stop me. Actually, I can live here anymore. If you want to return for your belongings, you must schedule it with 24 hours notice. That is what the law says. The law. Are you kidding me right now? Not even a little bit. Files. For divorce. Fine, but you are playing by the actual rules now. Not just whatever you feel like doing. She stared at me, like I had suddenly grown a second head. You are being completely unreasonable. No, I am being perfectly clear. You made your choice yesterday, so now you have to deal with the consequences. Call before you return, or do not come back at all. Absolutely insane. Where am I supposed to go? That is no longer my problem. You are the one who wanted to be finished, so figure it out. She stood there with her suitcases, her face flushed red with rage. Friends. Fine. I will go to my friend's place until I find an apartment near the clinic. But this is not over. Great. See you never. She walked out and slammed the door behind her.
Fapt.
I waited until I heard her car pull away before heading back into the bedroom. Her laptop was still resting on the dresser, the one she had been using for her school assignments. She had probably intended to grab it, but had forgotten in her frantic hurry to make a dramatic exit. The laptop was still logged in. We had shared passwords for years because that is what married people did,
Vind.
and she had never bothered to change hers. I opened it up, and the first thing I saw was her messaging app wide open on the screen. The most recent conversation was with someone named Camden,
Busey.
a colleague from her dental school class based on the profile picture. The messages went back 6 months. 6 months of morning texts, Latinite conversations about difficult patients,
Fumo.
and study sessions that clearly involved much more than just studying. There were plans for after graduation and discussions about which practices they would join together. Then,
You.
I saw a message from 3 weeks ago that made my smuck as drop. I can't wait to finally be done with this. Once I am officially divorced, we can stop sneaking around because I am ready to start our life together.
Vend.
Scrolled through more messages, finding photos, timestamps, and detailed plans about how she would handle the divorce announcement. She wanted to keep it simple and quick so she could move on without drama,
Assuming I.
would just accept it and sign everything because I had always been so agreeable. Then I found something even worse. I saw screenshots of bank statements she had sent to Camden,
Huge.
showing accounts I didn't recognize with deposits from her parents. There were regular transfers of $2,000 every single month for the past 15 months.
Yo, this was money.
I never knew existed because she had told me. Her parents went helping her financially, claiming they wanted her to be independent. That is why I had been covering every single expense.
Except that was a total lie.
Her parents had been funding her the entire time, instead of using it for tuition or expenses as they probably intended. She had been stashing it away to build her own secret savings account.
Ishin.
Meanwhile, I was paying for the rent, utilities, groceries, and her mounting student loans. There were messages between her and Camden discussing exactly that. Almost at $30,000 now.
What you have saved, we can get a really nice place.
You are playing this perfectly. He has no idea you even have that money. I know, he thinks my parents cut me off years ago. Meanwhile,
You.
I am just stacking it while he covers everything. I grabbed my phone and started taking pictures of everything, gathering evidence of the messages. The bank statements.
Boom.
And the conversations with Camden about using the money for their future. I called the lawyer I had consulted that morning, leaving a message that I needed an emergency appointment.
Use.
I told him I had found evidence of infidelity and hidden assets, and that this divorce was about to get a lot more complicated than my wife had planned. 2 weeks after Lauren moved out,
Ubre.
my lawyer sent her legal team the initial discovery request. Full financial disclosure was demanded, including bank statements from every account, investment records, and credit card transactions. Everything. Plus,
He included.
noticed that we had concrete evidence of infidelity and were fully prepared to contest the divorce terms she had proposed. Her response came within 24 hours.
Panicked phone call
From a number I didn't recognize lit up my screen. She had ignored her lawyer's advice and called me directly. You are actually doing this, fighting the divorce. I am simply making sure it is fair.
you want. Right.
Everything divided fairly. You know exactly what I meant. Just take your half and let us be done with this. My half of what, exactly? Fighting the divorce?
Simply ensuring.
Everything remains fair. That's what you insisted on, isn't it? A transparent division of our assets. You know exactly what I mean. Just accept your half, and let's move on from this nightmare.
You won.
What is exactly the assets you've declared on paper? Or my legitimate half of everything, including those hidden accounts you thought you'd never discover? A heavy silence lingered on the other end of the line. He clearly hadn't anticipated that it'd dig deep enough to expose her secret ledgers. When her voice finally returned, it carried a much sharper, more aggressive edge. I have no idea what delusions you're harboring,
Fix.
but you are wasting precious time and money on these legal theatrics. Just face the reality and get over it. I didn't offer a rebuttal. I simply cut the call. 3 days passed, and around 7 p.m.,
Pfingst.
a sharp knock rattled my apartment door. Peering through the peephole, I saw a woman I vaguely recognized, one of my wife's associates from her dental school days. We'd met at a few parties years ago.
She was hardly a close acquaintance.
She must have scoured the old holiday card address lists my wife kept. I cracked the door open. Can I help you with something? Hi, I apologize for the intrusion.
Fakesy.
I need to return something your wife accidentally left in my car. Could I come in for just a moment? Her Slovenian accent was thick, clipping the edges of her words. It clicked instantly. Melanie.
Please.
My wife had mentioned her sporadically, though they never seemed to share a genuine friendship. I can just grab it right here at the door. It's actually a bit heavy. Please, just a second of your time.
Every instinct screaming at me, I stepped aside.
Entered, as if she were walking a runway wearing a tight formal dress. Towering heels and a cloud of overpowering perfume. She carried nothing. No bag, no box.
To return.
She sat on my sofa, crossing her legs with a deliberate, calculated elegance. So, what was it you needed to return? Oh, goodness. I must have left it in the trunk. But honestly,
You wanted to speak with you.
I feel terrible about what she's put you through. You were such a dedicated, loyal husband. She really shouldn't be treating you like this. Okay, I appreciate the sentiment, I suppose.
Feh.
She leaned forward, and the shift in her dress was far from accidental. She began with the pity play. You must be so incredibly lonely. It's devastating when the person you trust most betrays you. Isn't it then?
Phew.
She pivoted to blatant flattery. She commented on how handsome I was, how strong I seemed. She insisted my wife was a fool to walk away from a man of my caliber. I took a deliberate step back.
Factually. Doing perfectly fine.
Just focused on the legal proceedings. But you're here all by yourself. You have no one to help you feel better. She patted the empty spot on the sofa beside her. We could be friends.
Thing we. Maybe help each other out.
Yeah,
Absolutely not.
this was transparently pathetic. I'd been married for 6 years. I wasn't a naive child. I recognized a setup when it was practically painted on the wall.
Think it's time for you to go.
She rose, moved closer, and suddenly swayed on her heels, feigning a dizzy spell while reaching out to grab my arm. I sidestepped effortlessly. She stumbled forward,
Fed.
putting on a clumsy show of falling into my personal space. Oh, I feel so lightheaded. Could you help me? You're perfectly capable of sitting down on your own. I'll grab you a glass of water. I retreated to the kitchen.
Firmly. Sit side the entire time.
She settled onto the couch in slow motion, posing like a mannequin for a catalog. Her phone lay face down on the coffee table.
Thanked of station.
A red notification light pulsed rhythmically like a warning sign. When I returned with the glass, she gazed up at me with what she clearly believed was an alluring, seductive expression.
Feed.
Seen more believable performances in a low-budget infomercial. Thank you, you are such a gentleman. I set the water on the table and remained standing, refusing to lower my guard. Drink up then. I really need you to leave.
Each it.
She took the glass but didn't touch the water. She just clutched it, gathering her courage for one final, desperate move. She stood up and invaded my space, looming far too close, acting as though she was about to embrace me.
Absolutely certain you want me to leave?
We could put on a movie, have a wonderful evening together. I raised my hand, firm and unyielding, maintaining a clear barrier between us. I am very certain her mask slipped. Flicker of frustration crossed her face. Your wife will never know. It can be our little secret. There it was, the entire point of this nauseating theater. Actually, my wife would know exactly what happened.
You'd make sure she did. That's why.
You're here, isn't it? To manufacture evidence of me cheating so she can weaponize it in our divorce. Her face went blank for a heartbeat. Then she scrambled to recover. No, no,
You've completely misunderstood me.
I was just trying to be. To be what? A good friend? Is that phone on the table recording us right now? She darted a panicked glance at the device. It was an automatic instinctual reaction.
Or caught.
She lunged for the phone, but I was faster. I snatched it from the table before her fingers could brush it. Want to see if this is recording? No, give it back! She clawed at my hand, her composure shattering.
He said.
If you touch me, you lose the house, okay? But you aren't touching me, so just give me the phone. The words tumbled out in a fit of hysterical panic. Then, her eyes widened as the gravity of her own confession hit her.
Exactly what she had just admitted to.
She stood up abruptly, far too fluidly for a woman who had been dizzy only moments before. I think maybe I should just go now? Yeah.
Probably the smartest thing you've said all night.
She grabbed her purse and bolted for the door. She paused with her hand on the knob and looked back over her shoulder. You know what?
Nearly as stupid as she thinks you are.
Thanks, I replied coldly. That might be the most genuine thing anyone has said to me all week. She vanished into the night without another word.
Phew.
I locked the door and pulled up my Ring doorbell footage. There it was, a perfect timestamp. Her arrival alone, dressed for a seduction, at 7 p.m. Her exit, 20 minutes later, looking livid rather than lightheaded.
Finked.
The footage didn't show the conversation, but it proved the intent. It proved she didn't come here to return a lost item. She came here to facilitate a frame-up. I forwarded the file to my lawyer immediately.
Phew.
It was another brick in the wall of evidence proving my wife would stop at nothing, even using her friends as pawns to secure a win. The attempt was pathetic, but it told me everything. She was terrified.
Bang.
The discovery process was closing in on her hidden facets. The infidelity evidence had her trapped. And she was desperate enough to try a tactic, this clumsy and reckless. It meant I was winning. The next afternoon,
Think.
a text popped up from an unknown number. This is Claire. We need to talk. It's about what happened last night. Claire. I knew that name perfectly well. Everything changed the moment I realized I was winning.
Following afternoon.
My phone vibrated with a message from an unrecognized number. Bot. It was a simple text. This is Claire. We need to talk. It's about what happened last night. Claire. I knew that name immediately.
Patient.
She was the third person in my wife's inner circle, the one who always seemed the most grounded compared to the rest of them. We had actually shared some genuine conversations at various gatherings. He worked in hospital administration, not dentistry, and always felt far more normal than that elitist crowd. I typed back, "Who gave you my number?" The response was instant.
From your wife's phone. When she wasn't looking.
I know that sounds bad, but you need to hear what I have to say. Can we meet somewhere? I suggested. A coffee shop near my Office-neutral territory.
Public enough. To feel safe.
She agreed right away. When I arrived, she was already there, sitting at a corner table, looking incredibly nervous. This wasn't the kind of nervous someone feels when they are trying to set you up.
Fingy.
This was the look of someone on the verge of betraying a friend to save their own conscience. I sat down across from her and asked, "So what is this about?" She took a shaky breath. "I need to tell you what's really going on."
Failure planning. I can't be part of this anymore. It's wrong.
She pulled out her phone and started scrolling, her hands trembling slightly. "Last night, after Melanie tried to seduce you,
Straight back to your wife's parents' house.
they were all there. Your wife, Melanie, and a few others. They were celebrating, thinking it had worked." I stared at her, my blood running cold. "It didn't work."
Firmly.
"I know," she replied. "Melanie told them you rejected her completely. You kept your distance the whole time. You wouldn't even touch her when she faked being dizzy. Your wife was absolutely furious.
Finn.
She had been so sure you would take the bait." Claire turned her phone to show me screenshots. It was a nightmare laid out in digital evidence. Group chat messages, voice memos, and a full-blown conspiracy.
They had been plotting this for weeks.
Melanie had volunteered to seduce me, believing that if they could capture just one compromising photo, my wife could use it to destroy my reputation in the divorce.
Eeg.
She wanted to claim I had been cheating too to ensure she got everything. Why are you telling me this? I asked my barely whisper. She looked down at her coffee, avoiding my eyes. Because I've watched your wife treat you like trash for years. I've seen how hard you worked to support her. And this whole thing with Camden, the hiding of assets, and now trying to frame you, it's too much.
Feng can't pretend.
I don't see what's happening. You knew about Camden. Everyone knew, she said sadly. They all thought it was great that Shed found someone ambitious who understood her career.
Feng,
They kept telling her you were holding her back, that she deserved someone on her level. The coffee in my cup suddenly tasted like ash. I told her it was wrong, Claire continued. I told her you didn't deserve this.
you should just be honest.
Be honest about wanting a divorce instead of trying to make you the villain. But she kept saying you would try to take everything if she didn't control the narrative.
Beautium.
So she decided to create a narrative where I'm the bad guy. I finished exactly. And I'm done watching it. I have the evidence, text messages, where they're planning it all.
Feed.
Voice memos of your wife coaching Melanie on how to seduce you and bank statements showing the account she's been hiding. She slid a flash drive across the table. Everything is on here. Dates, times, participants.
For enough to prove she's been deliberately sabotaging you.
I picked up the drive. It felt heavier than it should have, like the weight of a shattered life. Why now? Why not earlier?
Things.
Because I didn't realize how far she would take it until Melanie came back bragging about her attempt, she admitted. They were laughing about it, joking that you probably haven't been with anyone in years.
So you'd be easy to manipulate. It made me sick.
She looked me dead in the eye. Your wife has become someone I don't recognize. Someone I don't want to be friends with anymore, and you deserve the truth.
He's going to know you gave me this.
I warned. I know, I'm prepared. I'd rather lose a friend than watch someone destroy a decent person for the sake of convenience. I thanked her and left immediately.
Fing, driving straight to my lawyer's office.
Bot. He loaded the drive, and we spent 2 hours meticulously going through the betrayal, the conspiracy to frame me, the chat logs celebrating her affair with Camden,
You.
the bank documents proving she had hidden assets to shield them from the divorce. It was all there. This changes everything, my lawyer said, his face grim. With this evidence, we can prove fraud, infidelity,
Fent.
and attempted evidence. Tampering. She isn't just going to lose the upper hand, she's going to lose badly. He paused, scrolling further down the files. Wait, there's something else here you need to see.
Fist.
He pointed to a string of messages between my wife and Camden from 3 months ago. She was sharing specific details about my medical history, things she absolutely shouldn't have had access to.
Fingstem.
When did you last authorize her to view your records? He asked. Years ago, I said, back when we were still pretending the marriage worked. He zoomed in on a specific document.
Finked.
She told Camden about a prescription you filled last month. She used her dental license to access the state PDMP system and searched your name to see if you were on anything that could make you look bad in court.
Warned her patient.
That is illegal PDMP misuse and a major HIPAA violation. That evening, Claire texted me again. She knows. I told her I gave you the evidence. She's threatening to sue me, ruin my reputation.
Me fired.
Typical, I replied. I'm sorry. You're dealing with that, I wrote back. Don't be, she answered. I made my choice. Some things are more important than keeping fake friends happy. 3 days later, my lawyer filed an amended response to the divorce petition. We included the evidence of the affair, the hidden assets, the attempted fraud, and the illegal medical record tampering. The entire facade collapsed.
Fuba.
My wife's high-priced lawyer called for an emergency meeting, pleading that his client wanted to settle. He begged us to work something out without going to trial. I sat in silence, looking at the window.
Feeling the weight of the last few years finally lifting off my chest.
For the first time in a decade, I wasn't just surviving. I was finally, truly in control. Justice wasn't just coming, it was already here.
Eeg.
What started as a quiet evening quickly spiraled into a nightmare I never saw coming. My wife's lawyer reached out with an urgent request, claiming she was finally ready to settle and wanted to avoid the spotlight of a courtroom.
Finked.
I looked at my attorney, and his silence said everything I needed to know. He didn't even hesitate before firing back a response. Your client had her chance to be transparent, and instead,
Crumbs.
she chose a path of calculated fraud and conspiracy. There is nothing left to negotiate. We will see her in front of a judge. The discovery process that followed was an absolute train wreck for her.
Every secret account,
She desperately tried to tuck away had to be laid bare. Every cent she siphoned off had to be accounted for, down to the last dollar.
every fabricated.
Lies she spun about our shared assets crumbled the moment it hit the harsh light of a courtroom. Camden, the man she had been seeing behind my back, suddenly realized the ship was sinking.
Absolutely nothing to do with the wreckage.
I remember reading his texts from the discovery files, and honestly, it was almost poetic. She had even shared screenshots of their private messages on her social media,
Binged.
bragging about how perfect they were. When she told him the divorce proceedings were becoming a legal minefield, he didn't offer support. He wrote, "This is exactly why I stay away from drama."
She?
When she begged him to stand on the witness stand and back up her version of the timeline, his reply was ice cold. "I am not getting involved in your legal mess. I thought you had this handled."
Binges.
The final message he sent before blocking her permanently was the ultimate reality check. "Look, I thought you were going to be a successful dentist with a life together."
This whole fraud and conspiracy thing isn't what I signed up for.
"I need to focus on my career. Good luck with everything." It was a sharp, painful realization for her. He had viewed her as an accessory to his life.
Professional partner for his status.
The moment that accessory came with the heavy weight of legal consequences, he vanished.
Thing.
She had thrown away 6 years of a committed marriage for a man who couldn't handle 6 months of inconvenience. The aftermath was brutal. The comment section on her posts turned into a feeding ground.
Thing.
Former classmates from her dental school began chiming in with details no one else knew. Someone leaked the screenshots of her messages to Camden,
V.
where she had called me useless and boasted about how much money she had successfully hidden from me. Another person posted the actual court filings detailing the fraud charges. Within one short week, her online world had completely imploded. Meanwhile, a different connection was forming. Claire and I started talking more, and it wasn't about the legal battles at all. Nut. We spoke about our days, the small,
Evil.
mundane things that actually make life feel human. She would tell me about the exhaustion of her workday, and I would share stories about the absurdity of my own life. It was effortless. It was calm.
Being seedy.
"I keep wondering how you managed to stay so steady through all of this," she remarked one night over a quiet dinner. We had started meeting up regularly, just to check in on each other.
Thing.
Her the anger she was hunting for would have been a mistake, I explained. Documentation and a strong legal team are the only things that truly matter now. "That is very mature of you," she said before adding with a wink.
You are just very calculated.
"I am not quite sure which one yet." She laughed then, and it was a genuine sound. It was real, unlike the hollow, performative laughter I had been subjected to for 6 years.
We weren't dating.
Not in the traditional sense. But there was a rhythm building between us that felt entirely right. The divorce itself dragged on for 6 grueling months. There were endless depositions,
Eek.
mountains of paperwork, and increasingly desperate settlement offers from her side. I refused every single one of them. She had demanded this battlefield, so I gave her exactly what she wanted.
Affected.
The judge was visibly disgusted by her conduct, the hidden assets, the infidelity, the scheme to frame me, and the conspiracy to forge evidence. Everything was laid out in the official record,
Fingered.
and Claire's testimony provided the final, crushing blow. When the verdict was read, it was far better than even my attorney had anticipated. I was awarded the apartment, the car,
Finged.
and 60% of the marital assets, because the judge ruled her secret accounts were clear evidence of intentional concealment. I was also granted a significant portion of the funds she had siphoned away over the years.
You.
She sat in the courtroom, looking as if the world had physically collapsed onto her. Her lawyer kept leaning in, whispering instructions, likely telling her that fighting further would only destroy what little she had left.
Fixed.
Camden had stopped showing up to court months ago, clearly having decided that a woman willing to commit perjury and fraud wasn't worth the risk. She had bombarded him with hundreds of texts,
Fiend.
but he had blocked her on every platform, and even changed his number. When I walked out of that courthouse, I felt a weight vanish that I hadn't realized I was carrying for years. I hadn't just won assets, I had won my life back.
Fing?
I was finally free of someone who saw me as nothing more than a bank account with a heartbeat. Claire was waiting for me outside, having taken the afternoon off just to stand in my corner.
How did it go?
She asked.
It is over,
I said, breathing the fresh air for the first time in forever.
It is finally over.
She hugged me right there on the steps, a gesture of pure, shared relief. We grabbed dinner that evening and started planning a hiking trip for the weekend. So, what happens now? She asked while we finished dessert. Now I figure out who I am outside of that marriage, I replied.
Build a life that is actually mine.
That sounds like a beautiful plan, she said, looking at me with intent. Do you want to be a part of it? The building part, I mean? She smiled, and in that moment,
Everything.
yeah, I said softly. I think I would like that very much. We decided to take things slowly, moving with intention rather than haste. 3 months after the divorce was finalized, we made it official. 6 months after that, she moved into my apartment, the very place my ex-wife had once told me she was too good for. It felt like coming home for the first time. My ex-wife, however, was facing a reality she never saw coming.
Peace.
The dental clinic where she practiced launched a massive investigation after an anonymous tip reported a serious KEPA violation. It turned out she had been accessing my private medical records throughout the entire divorce.
In the clinic systems. To dig for information she hoped would hurt my case.
Using patient records to settle a personal vendetta wasn't just unethical. It was illegal, and now,
Face the consequences alone. Subreddit.
let me take you back to a moment that defined the turning point of my entire existence.
Never just about the marriage ending.
It was about the systematic destruction of everything I had built, orchestrated by someone who had once promised to walk by my side through it all.
Figment.
The medical records she had been pulling during our divorce proceedings were the final nail in her own coffin. She thought she was being clever, using patient systems to dig up dirt,
Vince that a breach of ethics.
would give her the upper hand in court, but using confidential patient information for personal vendettas. That wasn't just unethical, it was a criminal offense. The clinic didn't hesitate. She was suspended immediately, and formal legal proceedings began against her. She lost her associate position, and her career was placed on indefinite probation. The dental community is a surprisingly small,
Fend.
interconnected web, and news travels faster than a whisper. Her reputation took a catastrophic hit, the kind you simply don't recover from. There was a bitter irony to it all. She had spent 6 long years grinding, studying,
Vidawal.
only to torpedo it in a fit of rage because she couldn't handle the fact that I had finally moved on. Meanwhile, Camden had moved to a completely different city, starting a different life.
Who was probably
Sitting across from some new woman right now, spinning a tale about his drama-free life, conveniently editing out the chapter where he played a part in dismantling a marriage. My ex-wife called me once.
6 months after the divorce was finalized.
I had unblocked her number, mostly because I had reached a state of total indifference. I made a mistake. Such a huge mistake. She sobbed into the phone.
Everything is falling apart, and I need your help.
I didn't feel rage.
I didn't feel pity.
I just felt a cold, hollow sense of finality. That's unfortunate, I replied, my voice steady. Good luck with everything.
Fusion.
I hung up, blocked the number again, and went on with my afternoon. Claire was in the kitchen, and she asked who it was. I told her, she just nodded, and we went right back to discussing dinner plans.
You.
That was the moment I knew I was truly free. Her crisis no longer created an obligation for me. Her regret wasn't a door left open for reconciliation. She was just a ghost.
Fitz.
Someone I used to know who had made a series of devastating choices. A year after the divorce, I asked Claire to marry me. It wasn't a grand cinematic proposal. It was just the two of us on a weekend hiking trip.
Benji.
On the exact same trail where we had first leaned on each other as friends during the darkest days of the legal battle. She said yes before the question had fully left my lips. We planned the wedding for 8 months out.
Small and intimate.
Only the people who had truly supported us were invited, those who didn't whisper behind our backs while smiling to our faces. My ex-wife had lost nearly her entire social circle by then.
Thing.
Once Claire and I went public, a chain reaction started. But friends realized they didn't want to be associated with someone who had committed fraud, cheated, and flagrantly violated patient privacy.
Fubel.
The old crowd from dental school had completely scattered. Melanie had apparently fled back to Slovenia, citing visa issues.
From Sure.
It had absolutely nothing to do with her role in trying to frame me during those court hearings. The wedding planning felt effortless. Claire knew what she wanted, and I knew what I didn't.
Fix.
We compromised on the big things and didn't lose a second of sleep over the trivial ones. When the big day finally arrived, the weather was perfect. Claire looked like something out of a dream.
Thing.
The venue was exactly what we had envisioned, and our families were genuinely happy. I stood at the front with my best man, watching the guests arrive.
Thing there.
They weren't there out of obligation, they were there because they shared our joy. I saw the coordinator checking the final details, and the bridesmaids moving into position. Everything was running like clockwork. Then,
Faher.
my ex-wife was walking up the path from the parking lot, wearing some cheap cocktail dress that looked like it had been pulled off the floor of a back seat. Her hair was a disheveled mess,
Things.
and her makeup looked like it had been applied in a moving vehicle. She looked like a woman who had realized halfway through her journey that she was making the biggest mistake of her life, but was too stubborn to turn back.
Beauty.
I caught the coordinator's eye and tilted my head toward the intruder. The coordinator saw her, stiffened, and immediately signaled the security team it hired. Meanwhile, the guests remained oblivious, chatting and laughing,
Having.
no idea that a hurricane of drama was approaching from the west entrance. The coordinator reached my ex-wife well before she could reach the ceremony area. I couldn't hear the words, but the body language was aggressive.
You should.
The coordinator stood her ground. The security guys flanked her. My ex-wife was gesturing wildly, shouting something. Then she tried to shove past them. She acted as if they were nothing more than scenery,
You bet.
pushing straight for the center aisle. The chatter began to die down. People started turning their heads, sensing the shift in the air. She made it about 6 steps before the security guards stepped in.
Fiend.
Each grabbed an arm not violently, but with absolute firmness. She tried to wrench herself free, but her heel caught on the edge of the carpet runner. She went down hard, landing on her hands and knees. The dress hiked up in a way that felt more pathetic than tragic. Her purse emptied out, scattering lipstick, tissues, and her phone across the path. For 3 agonizing seconds, the entire venue fell into complete silence.
Thingpult.
Everyone was just staring at this woman, crumpled on the ground in the middle of my aisle. Then, the sobbing started. It wasn't the quiet, dignified kind of weeping. It was full-blown hysterical wailing.
Feet.
Her makeup was running in thick, dark streaks, and her nose was raw. "Wait!" she shrieked, still pinned to the floor. "You can't do this! We are supposed to be together! This is all wrong!" I just stood there. I didn't move.
Didn't say a word.
I watched this person I once loved dissolve into a total meltdown at the most important moment of my life. Claire's sister leaned over and whispered, "Do you want me to handle this?" "No," I replied.
Security has it covered.
The guards were trying to hoist her up, but she was thrashing, making it a spectacle for everyone involved. Some of the guests had their phones out, recording the disaster.
Fair.
I knew this would be all over social media by the time dinner was served.
I'm a dentist.
She screamed at the crowd, desperate for some kind of validation. "You can't treat me like this. I have a right to be here."
Understand.
The venue coordinator, a hero of a woman, stepped forward and spoke with a voice that carried clearly across the garden. Ma'am, this isn't your practice. You are not a guest, and you are not welcome here. Few people in the back let out a sharp laugh. The irony was just too sharp to ignore. My ex-wife finally stopped resisting as they hauled her to her feet. She looked directly at me, face a mask of ruined mascara and shattered pride. I made a mistake, she gasped, her voice trembling. I lost everything. I looked at her. Then I looked at Claire, who was watching with calm, steady eyes. No, I said,
Vince,
my voice cutting through the silence. You didn't lose everything. You just finally reaped exactly what you sowed. I signaled the security team. They didn't waste another second.
Vic,
They escorted her off the property while the guests slowly turned back toward the altar, the tension in the air dissipating as quickly as it had arrived. I turned to Claire, took her hands,
Yutushim.
and ignored the lingering shadow of the past. The music started to play. The ceremony went on, and for the first time in years, the only thing that mattered was the future we were building.
Fuzet.
Justice wasn't a dramatic act, it was the simple, quiet reality of moving on, while the person who tried to break you finally had to sit with the consequences of their own design. I didn't need to say another word to her.
He had already said enough for both of us.
The sun started to set behind the trees, casting a warm light over the guests. I took a deep breath, and for the first time, I felt truly at peace. Everything we had suffered,
Eagle.
every betrayal, every sleepless night, had brought us to this exact perfect moment, and I wouldn't have traded a single second of the journey, because it made the destination feel like a victory. The past was gone,
Then was learned.
and now there was only us. The security guards hoisted her up, but she remained a broken mess. Her mascara bled down her cheeks in jagged, dark rivers.
Your elaborate hairstyle was unraveling into a tangled heap.
She locked eyes with me, her gaze desperate and hollow. I made a catastrophic mistake. She choked out, her voice raw. I've lost everything now, me career.
Our circle of friends. All of it.
You were the only thing that actually mattered in my life, and I discarded you like trash. Please, just grant me 5 minutes to explain my side. No.
Fiendant.
I didn't shout. I didn't let a flicker of rage or sorrow color my tone. It was simply a quiet, absolute refusal to entertain her presence any longer. You have to listen, she begged, clutching at her dress. You once loved me.
Kind of connection. Doesn't just vanish into thin air.
Just then, Claire stepped out from behind the veil of the archway, gliding down the aisle in a gown that looked like starlight captured in lace.
He halted 6 feet from my ex-wife.
Standing there with an air of tranquil grace, utterly unfazed by the chaos. The color drained from my ex-wife's face as the crushing reality settled in.
E.T.
This wasn't some cliché cinematic moment where the groom abandoned the altar to chase after a ghost from his past. It was the sight of a woman realizing exactly what a future she had nuked with her own hands.
Her? Wife whispered, her eyes darting to Claire.
You chose her over me. She was my closest friend, and you both betrayed me like this. Claire's voice was as steady as a calm sea, possessing a strange, haunting kindness.
Dismantled your own life, not us.
We extended olive branch after olive branch, begging you to take the honorable path. Instead, you leaned into fraud, deception, and betrayal every single time you hit a hurdle.
Fact. War.
I was just terrified, she stammered, sobbing. I made mistakes. You didn't make mistakes. You made calculated choices, I interjected, stepping forward.
Femmed.
And this aisle is exactly where those choices finally led you. Security, please escort her off the property immediately. The guards didn't hesitate, gripping her arms as she began to wail, trying to wrench herself free.
You.
She kept screaming my name, a frantic, pathetic sound that bounced off the walls of the venue. The guests stood in a deathly silence, witnessing the total wreckage of a life in real time. As they neared the exit, Nolan,
Fend.
my oldest friend and groomsman, leaned over to a guest and whispered, loud enough for half the room to hear, man, he really dodged a nuclear warhead there. A ripple of nervous, genuine laughter broke out across the rows.
Ex-wife.
Whipped her head around to glare at him, her indignation causing her to trip over her own heels again. She caught her balance, but the clumsiness only deepened the humiliation of the scene.
Thinked.
Once the guards successfully ushered her into the parking lot, the wedding coordinator followed close behind to ensure she didn't loop back around. Claire turned back toward the starting point of her entrance,
Fune.
meeting my gaze with a small, knowing smile that told me everything was exactly as it should be. It was the greatest wedding gift I could have ever hoped for.
Vixen.
My ex-wife's dramatic arrival lasted just long enough to confirm that I had made the right decision twice over. But, guys, we are incredibly close to hitting that 100,000 subscriber milestone on the channel.
You haven't clicked that button yet. Please consider subscribing.
It truly helps us reach that dream, and I can't thank you enough for being part of this journey.